A very welcome to this new episode of Off to 7,000 Islands. My name is Eric and I live here in the Philippines with my wife, and we have a little hotel, so we are very much involved into the travel industry, tourism industry and all this kind of stuff. And I see this a lot asked and planned in the internet to travel over Christmas in the Philippines. And there's a few things you need to think about it. From someone who traveled myself a lot in the Philippines and around Christmas time as well. We actually had our wedding between Christmas and New Year and all this kind of stuff. I want to give you just some tips, a collection of different things to think about when you come here over Christmas. So let's get into the video.
Liftoff.
So the first thing you need to think about is, of course, that everyone is traveling. So it's a Catholic country. That means it's different to most other Asian countries where Christmas is not a big deal just for the tourists, but it's a big deal for the locals as well. So it's very important. So that means there's a lot of traveling going on, and the infrastructure is complicated because there's so many islands and the infrastructure is mostly not that great. So let's talk about flying and traveling, inter-island travel by public transport, ferry and all those kind of things first. So when flying, you need to imagine you have lots of airlines here who don't really care if you arrive or not. If you're from the US, you know what Spirit airline is like, and you can compare most of the islands to something like this. And it's for Christmas time, you need to book early, and you need to be early and put lots of buffers in of time so that you arrive there where you need to arrive, because things are working slowly here, and when then there's more people, they will work even slower, and then they also cost a lot. And then for ferries and inter-island travel by boat, bus and so on, they are really full. And ferry companies usually here in the Philippines, at least my experience is, they don't have a problem with overloading their ferries as well. So that's a bit of a tricky kind of situation here in the Philippines. And because most of the ferries you can't book online sensibly, you need to show up at the port, and you need to do that very early, 2-3 hours before, if you want to exactly travel around Christmas. So it's very, very busy because everyone is traveling. And of course the other thing is that sometimes as Western foreigners that can be really frustrating, because punctuality is not one of the most important values here in the Philippines. It's been a Spanish colony, and there's lots of delays and people get stuck, and they seem to not mind as much as maybe we would do from the West. So that's also kind of stuff you need to think about. So you need to prepare a lot of time, and I would recommend not to travel on the bank holidays, on the Christmas days. I mean 23rd to 26th, I would stay in one place. And the same is with New Year, from the 29th to the 2nd or so, depending on where the weekend lays. It's very unpractical to travel because then there everyone is traveling. Then also in November and December, Manila is crazy. Cebu also quite crazy, all the big cities basically, because there's so much traffic, even more traffic than there is already. So avoid those places, and if you stay there, I would recommend having a hotel, for example, with an airport shuttle and this kind of stuff, because it takes ages to find a taxi or a Grab, which is here the Uber equivalent, and it's very expensive as well, often then at this times of year. So that's just some of the tips when you go to Manila or travel in the Philippines around that time. Besides booking early, you also need to consider that many of the smaller hotels and stuff, they also close because all their staff wants to go home as well, and it's very important holiday. We need to understand that it's very important holiday. So many hotels run on a very low level. Ours is not. We are open this Christmas for the first time because we now have the ability and the staff and the management structure to do that. But many hotels here in the province don't do that. They just close. So you cannot travel as spontaneously as you want to. And also the things which are open are booked out. So book early, and you can find lots of hotels, write them on Facebook. You know, like that's how Filipinos book stuff here over Facebook. So find them on Facebook, write to them and talk with them before you get into trouble and disappointment on a Christmas holiday. No, you don't want that. Also, in Manila, of course, you need to be very careful, or in generally more careful with pickpocketing. Don't pull your phone out in public on a road and this kind of stuff. If you have people around you, or people can grab it from the road, because around Christmas time pickpocketing increases. So that's a bit of a, people look for presents, and if you hand them your present very easily, don't do it. So that's one of the things which also increases when here, like in many places. That's not unique to the Philippines, of course. And then basically the last point I want to talk about is the weather. It's still rain season, although it's not raining as much. This is more wind, and you have fantastic days. I like this time of travel, but that also means more wind, means more waves if you want to travel by ferry, and if you're not as sea-proof, then that can be a struggle. And also the chance of typhoons are still there. The main season where you really don't have typhoons is March to May. Otherwise you can always encounter technically a typhoon here in the Philippines, and you need to calculate that into your plans. Do you have a backup plan? When is your flight back? Do you have enough days to buffer that out? Because a typhoon moves usually very quickly, like it's one day in your place and then it's gone. But if there's no flight back to Manila and then back to your home country or something like this, then that's a bit of a problem. So you need to plan that a bit in, have some bigger buffers in the rain season here in the Philippines. It's unlikely that, you will encounter a lot, but never say never, and there can be typhoons in December, even with the wind is blowing from a different direction than in July, where there's much more typhoons, for example. So that's the things you really need to consider. The most important for me is book early. Don't travel on the main days around Christmas and New Year, but travel in between, and leave enough time and buffer to travel between islands and avoid Manila. So that's for me. I hope you found that helpful. We do upload travel tips every now and then because we think it's really a great country to travel, one of the best in Asia to travel in, but it's not always easy from the infrastructure perspective. And if you make a holiday here at Christmas, you need to plan it a bit better than you would maybe normally do, or you would do a Christmas holiday in Sri Lanka or Thailand or so. So that's a bit of the differences, but it's a great country to travel. I think it's one of the best holiday countries here in Asia, and with those simple steps and considerations, you're much better off. So please leave it a like if you found it helpful. Subscribe to our channel for more updates from the Philippines, travel advice, our life here in the Philippines, and we see you in the next one.